Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parsha share on Sefer Netivot Shalom. This week's Parsha of Miketz, the Torah speaks about the reaction that Paro has after Yosef interprets his dreams. The Torah says, "Vayomer Paro el avadav, hanimtzach hazeh ish asher ruach Elokim bo." He recognizes Yosef's great talent in interpreting dreams correctly, and he also recognizes that that talent comes directly from God, and that's not surprising. In fact, Yosef reinforces this throughout his interpretation of the dreams. Just a little bit earlier in the Parsha, in Pasuk Parak Mem Aleph Pasuk Tet Zayin, Yosef preempts his whole interpretation of the dreams by saying, Vayan Yosef es Paro. Yosef answers back to Paro and says, yeah, I'll interpret the dreams for you. But he says, Biladai, Elokim yanesh shlom Paro. You're looking to me to interpret your dreams. I'll be the mouthpiece, but you should know and recognize that whatever I'm going to say to you is actually coming from God. So it's no wonder that in the end of the story, Paro recognizes not just Yosef's talent, but the fact that it comes from Hashem. It's actually not altogether dissimilar from the shir that we gave last week on Netivot Shalom about the previous Parsha Vayeshev, where after Yosef is brought down to Egypt, he starts working in Beis Potiphar, and they recognize his great talent that he brings to the household, but they also recognize that his talent comes from God. In last week's Parsha, Perak Lameted, Pasuk Gimel, Vayar Adonav ki Hashem ito, v'chol asher hu oseh Hashem matzliach biyado. They see that God is with him. They see everything he does that is successful is because God is with him. And we asked last week, how does everyone around him, all these idolaters, know and recognize that his success comes from God? As Chazal point out, Rashi quotes on this Pasuk, it's because Yosef was always talking about God. He was saying, God this, God that. Yes, God showed me this. God did this for me. The name of God was always on his lips. He was promoting it so much that when people saw his success, they immediately associated with Hashem. Very powerful lesson for us about how we talk about God in our world. And I don't think we talk about God enough. I don't think we mention God enough. We have to be unashamed to be able to speak about God, even though that's a difficult intellectual concept. Yosef clearly did that in Beis Potiphar. He does that now in Beis Paro, and Paro himself recognizes that his talent comes from God. And now Paro says, therefore, Vayomer Paro el Yosef, Acharei hodia Elokim oscha es kozos. Now that I've seen that God was modia oscha, he taught you all this, he gave you the knowledge to interpret my dreams, I know ein navon v'chacham kamocha, that there is no one wiser than you in the world. And Paro borrows this phrase ein navon v'chacham actually from Yosef himself. After the interpretation of the dreams, when Yosef gives Paro the directive about what to do, to appoint someone over Egypt and to make sure to collect the food in the years of plenty, to save them for the years of famine, etc., the pasuk says, Ve'ata yirei Paro. Now, says Yosef to Paro, after I've told you what the meaning of the dreams is, Paro should see to appoint Ish Navon v'chacham v'yishiteo al eretz Mitzrayim. He should appoint a person who's a Navon v'chacham, a wise person, and appoint him all over all of Egypt to do X, Y, and Z. The capstone of that whole section is Paro says, yeah, you're right, Yosef. I will appoint an Ish Navon v'chacham, and there's no one more Navon v'chacham than you, so I'll appoint you over Egypt. Navon v'chacham is an interesting pairing, and the Netivot Shalom is going to speak a little bit about that. What is the difference between bina, navon, insight, and chachma, which is knowledge or wisdom? So the Netivot Shalom addresses himself to this pasuk, and he says, Yesh lomar hakavana bazeh al das mamar maran asaba kadisha mislonim schusa yagen aleinu. He says we have to interpret this pasuk of ein navon v'chacham kamocha based on the previous Rebbe of Slonim, the grandfather of Slonim or Rebbes, is his interpretation of a certain Gemara in Kiddushin. The Gemara in Kiddushin we actually studied in the Shabbos Shuvah Drasha this past year. Gemara in Kiddushin says, Hamikadosh es ha'isha menas she'ani tzadik gamor, afilu rasha gamor mekudeshas. The Gemara in Kiddushin is speaking about many conditions that a person could put upon Kiddushin, upon a wedding, saying, I will only be married if X transpires, if X is true. And so we have to understand sometimes what the nature of the condition is and how we can determine whether it's fulfilled or not. So if a person makes a condition, a stipulation, that I'm only married to you if I am a tzaddik gamor, if I'm a completely righteous person. The Gemara concludes, Mekudeshes, she's indeed married. They are indeed married. That the condition was fulfilled. Even if the person making this stipulation is a Rasha Gamor, completely wicked person. How is that possible? How could it be a person's wicked? And he says, you're only married to me on condition that I'm righteous. How could we say that the Kiddushin goes through? The Gemara answers, Shema hirher tshuva bedato. That perhaps he had a thought of tshuva. And as we talked about extensively in the Shabbos Shuvah Drasha, how could it be that the thought of tshuva alone, without any of the hard work that goes along with it, transforms this person from a rasha to a tzaddik? But evidently the Gemara is saying it does. Here her tshuva belibo, if in his heart, here her tshuva bedato, if he thinks about tshuva, he has an instinct towards tshuva, he sparks himself to tshuva even in a momentary fleeting thought, he transforms himself from a rasha to a tzaddik, and therefore the condition of the kiddushin is fulfilled. So one of the questions everybody asks on this Gemara is how, of course, is a thought alone enough to transform this individual? And the Rebbe of Slonim asks the same question. Shadavar tamua. How could 1 second of instinct towards tshuva transform this person from a rasha to a tzaddik? And he says the answer actually lies in the words Chazal used to define the hirhur tshuva of this individual. Ve'amar alzeh shechazal diku b'lashonam. They were very precise in the language they chose in this Gemara. It says the reason he can be considered a tzaddik gamor, even though he's a rasha, is shema hirher tshuva b'da'ato. That maybe he had an instinct, an inkling towards tshuva in his das, in his knowledge. Call it knowledge for the moment. In his das, in his understanding. Velo amru shema hirher tshuva belibo. And the Gemara didn't say what we would naturally assume it would have said, that perhaps he had an instinct of tshuva in his leiv, in his heart, in his mind, heart. And actually, if you roll back this tape, or if you were paying attention, I quoted the Gemara off by heart to you just a couple of minutes ago, and I had that Freudian slip, where I quoted the Gemara, shema hirher tshuva belibo, and I caught myself and I said, no, tshuva bedato. So even I would say that instinctively I would have read the Gemara, Shema hirher tshuva belibo, but it doesn't say that. It says Shema hirher tshuva bidato. He says Chazal were very specific that it's only because the hirhur tshuva happens in the das that the tshuva is so complete to transform this person from a rasha to a tzaddik. And he explains it as follows: Shedas, what is das? We call it understanding or knowledge, but what is das? Hu hakolel midos chachma uvina. It's the attribute that combines two other knowledge-related attributes called chachma bina. If you imagine the 10 sfirot, the 10 emanations of Hashem in Kabbalah, at least according to the Arizal, the first 3, the crown at the top, the way the spheres are arranged, there's a left sphere, a right sphere, and then one that joins them together, and then another left sphere, right sphere, and joins them together. And those 10 all lead down to the bottom, which is our world, coming from the top, the Ein Sof, the Keter. That's how God emanates himself through into the world. So the middle sphere always balances out the left and the right sphere. They come together to combine into one. So if you think about the tree, the first 3 are Chachma, Bina, which balance out and combine together into Das. So that's what he's pointing to here. Das is really an amalgamation or the supreme combination of Bina and Chachma. And actually the initials, Chachma, Bina, Das, Chet, Bet, Dalet, is the initials of Chabad. Chabad Hasidus and the Bahatanya were based on this idea of Chachma, Bina, and Das, which Rabbi of Slonim here in the Sivur Shalom is going to elaborate upon further. He says, Das, Kol al Midas Chachma ubina. Das combines Chachma and Bina. Vehine Chachma mocha ubina liba. The way we understand it, Chachma is knowledge in the head, Bina is insight or wisdom or interpretation in the leiv, in the heart. So when we say Das is actually the combination of Chachma and Bina, we're saying that Das is the unique combination of awareness that a person achieves emotionally and intellectually. It's the fusion of understanding in the world from an emotional and intellectual perspective. So if you apply that back to the Gemara in Kiddushin, he says, Yesh tshuva shemekora b'moach hanovas mitoch havana sichlis. There's a tshuva that sometimes occurs because of intellectual reasons. V'yesh tshuva hanovas mirikshei alev. There's other tshuva that is based on emotional reactions. We know a person could be sparked to tshuva because they're thinking along a certain line. There's another, but they don't necessarily feel it, but they think it. They know this is the right move. They know this is what they have to do intellectually. And there's another kind of tshuva where they don't know anything. They don't understand where they're going. They have no rational thoughts about why religion is good or why they should do tshuva, but they feel something in their heart and they're just pushed towards it. There's two kinds of tshuva. Amnam, hashleimus hi tshuva hanovas mishneim gemiachad. But the most complete tshuva is one that occurs on both the intellectual and emotional plane. V'zeu she'amru, and that's why the Gemara specifies that the most complete, incredible transformation that changes a person from a rasha to a tzaddik, so much so that the fulfillment of the Sinai Kiddushin exists, is Shema Hirher Tshuva Bidato. When his tshuva reaches the level of das, the combination of chachma ubina, the combination of heart and mind, the combination of emotion and intellect. That's the most complete tshuva. That's the most transformative tshuva. Hainu tshuva b'midas hadas hakoleles chachma mocha ubina liba. The kind of tshuva that is a tshuva of das, combining both the intellect of chachma and the emotion of bina. Tshuva kazo she mitzad hamoach he mitzad halev. Tshuva like this that emanates from both the heart and the mind. That's tshuva shlema shebekocha lahafoch rasha gamor l'tzadik. Okay, so now we understand that statement of the Gemara. We understand why it could happen that a rasha turns to a tzaddik so quickly. Shema hirher tshuva bidato. Wasn't just a small amount of tshuva in the moach or in the leiv. It was the totality of tshuva that grabs this person. Shema hirher tshuva bidato. That somehow he was engulfed by this sensation intellectually and emotionally. He should do tshuva, and that transformed the entirety of his being. We understand that Gemara now. We understand the concept of das as the combination of chachma and bina. He says we can now come to understand our pasuk about Yosef as well. He says the pasuk was very particular. Paro says, "Vayomer Paro el Yosef, acharei hodia Elokim oscha es kozos ein navon v'chacham kamocha." The pasuk itself uses the three words acharei hodia. When God granted you das, I realized that there's no one who has more navon and chacham, bina and chachma. Chachma and bina come together to produce what Paro recognizes in this person, in Yosef, as das. Hainu. What the pasuk was saying is that Paro recognized that Yosef, hisagta es midas hadas. You have reached the level of das, the combination of navon and chacham, the combination of emotion and intellect. And that is what made Yosef stand out as a tremendous tzaddik, as a tremendous leader, as a tremendous influencer, as a tremendous source of success for Paro, because he achieved perhaps in all realms of life, not just in tshuva, as the Gemara in Kiddushin speaks about, but in the totality of his being, some incredible combination of emotion and intellect, as represented by the word das, followed by chachma and bina. The Netivot Shalom says that we in our world also should strive to achieve the combination of chachma and bina into its conglomerate called das, into completion in all areas of our life, in both the emotional and intellectual sense. And he actually says that Shabbos is one of those sources that can help us to achieve das. It's one of the things in Jewish life that's most associated with das. And we see that in many ways. In Parshat Kitisa, Siva Shalom points out when the pasuk tells us about Shabbos, Aches Shabbos, Society Shmaru, etc. Pasuk ends by saying, why should we keep Shabbos? L'das ki ani Hashem mekadishchem. To know, to have das, that God is the one who sanctifies us. And das, of course, is the combination of chachma and bina, emotion and intellect. Somehow on Shabbos we gain both the emotional and intellectual side of our understanding of God. It's reinforced again, the Gemara in Shabbos, famous Gemara, which tells us that Hashem gave us this great gift of Shabbos. The Gemara is very particular in its language. It says, Amar lo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, Hashem says to Moshe, Matana Tova Yeshli Bebeis Genazi, I have a very important gift in my storehouse, V'Shabbos Shema, and its name is Shabbos. And Gemara goes on and ends by saying to Moshe, Lech Hodi'am, go teach it to them, but it uses the word das, Hodi'am, to go teach them, implying that Moshe should teach the Jewish people that on Shabbos they can achieve das. They can achieve the combination of Chachma and Bina, the combination of emotion and intellect, which is the highest completion that a person can achieve. I hope that in all realms of our life we'll be able to feel the presence of God, both from the emotional perspective and from the intellectual perspective, and joining those two together come to be both the best people we can be, the best Jews we can be, and the most connected to Hashem possible. Good Shabbos.